The Secret Service has responded to cell phone video taken by CBS News correspondent Errol Barnett. Errol was on the same flight as the president's daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner Tuesday night when he tried to ask Kushner a question. Here's the video Errol recorded.
Hey there, Jared. Errol Barnett with CBS. Any comment on? This is confidential. I don't get it. It's a time of witness.
And joining me now by phone is Errol Barnett. So, Errol, before you tell us how the Secret Service responded, can you take us through the video again?
Sure, Elaine. I was flying up to New York from Washington, D.C., where I'm based, as I usually do, and the last two people to get on the plane were Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, surrounded by Secret Service agents. And typically in the D.C. Bureau, we will flag to each other when we see one of the president's team traveling or moving about D.C. or the country. So I flagged it to our D.C. Bureau, and it was decided immediately that, if possible, I should ask Jared Kushner, who advises President Trump and specifically advised him on forging ties with the Saudi royal family, what his response would be to the denials coming out of Riyadh that anyone had any involvement in the death or disappearance of the Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. The moment that we landed in New York, people deplaned and the Secret Service lined the aisle. So I put on my CBS News badge. I put on my White House press badge as well, which is vetted by the Secret Service. And as soon as Jared Kushner approached me, I tried to get his response to what's happening over in the Middle East. And immediately the Secret Service, in my view, ran interference, covered my camera, put it down, and then later told me that there was a time and the place for questions. And that was it. I really didn't think much of it until really this posted online, and by now it's been seen more than 650,000 times, I think, based on comments, because people see this is resonating with people as far as seeing the press, which is protected by the First Amendment, being limited or inhibited in the public place.
And Errol, now you have a response from the Secret Service. What did the Secret Service say about that interaction?
Well, they wanted to walk through the incident, what was seen in the video, and they wanted to get a sense of what was not seen in the video now that all of the agents in question had given their version of events. And what they wanted to make clear is that the Secret Service interacts with folks in the media on a daily basis and has a long-standing practice of respecting the First Amendment. And they said in their statement that the actions of the special agents were not intended to impede those First Amendment rights or access to Jared Kushner. They then go on to say the actions were a response to an abrupt movement by an unknown individual who later identified themselves as a member of the media. Now, when they said this to us, both myself and our bureau chief there in Washington, D.C., took issue with the characterization that I didn't identify myself, because it's the first thing I did. And I have to say that one of the first people to reach out to me when this was posted online was an actual Secret Service agent who saw that covering a camera violates protocol and is not something those agents are trained to do, and it's why we never see it. So the Secret Service is put into a position with this video going viral, and it really striking a chord with so many people to say something about this publicly.
Yeah, I think that is so fascinating to hear about the actual part of the statement where the Secret Service says an unknown individual who later identified themselves, because as you can clearly hear on that tape, as you know, your first words out of your mouth are Errol Barnett with CBS. Give us a sense, Errol, because I know you cover the White House. You have traveled extensively in places where Secret Service agents are all the time. For people who may not be familiar, it is very common to have interactions with Secret Service agents and uniformed officers in situations where they may feel, hey, a group of reporters are getting a little too close, back up. This seemed to be different.
Absolutely. In fact, up until this moment, and I would even include this moment, 100% of my interactions with the U.S. Secret Service have been positive, whether they are trying to keep us safe or protect the, officials that they're assigned to. And it's why I think this video is so unusual. In the United States, you never see these men and women who are among the top of the top when it comes to law enforcement, as far as their training, as far as their temperament. It is unusual to see any of them do things that are unusual or out of the ordinary, but they are human. And in the conversations we had with the Secret Service, they seemed to suggest that it was a very brief moment, that the plane was noisy, and that perhaps the agent in question didn't hear me identify myself initially. Perhaps he didn't realize I was a member of the press, and they kind of tried to muddy up the sequence of events as much as possible. But I come back to this original point that Secret Service agents have had an issue with what they saw in this video, because it appears as if the agent is covering the camera. They tried to suggest to me that, well, it was an unknown device moving toward, a White House official, and they simply gestured towards it, and when they realized it was a phone, they let it go. And I challenged that point directly, because I had my phone out while I was waiting for Jared Kushner to approach. So it has to be said that all of our interactions with the Secret Service have been positive. They protect the press when we travel overseas. We have just very positive on-the-record and off-the-record interactions and conversations, and I think it's why this video went viral. It's so unusual. It's something you usually never see, and CBS still is awaiting comment from Jared Kushner on what's happening in Saudi Arabia and in Turkey. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders tells me that if an opportunity for an interview presents itself, she will let me know.
So I imagine you have a standing request in, then, for that interview.
Yes, and I think it will be permanent for a while.
All right, Errol Barnett for us. Errol, thanks very much.
You got it, Elaine. Thank you.